Hey everybody, I hope you had a good trading day today. So 20 names that we're going to go through tonight. Some of them were up pretty generously. Others really kind of capitulated and fell apart. And then you have the guys that are just kind of in the middle, right? So you had some that really opened and gapped down and then ran. And they're somewhat interesting. So we are seeing positive moves here. We are seeing good earnings being rewarded. We're not seeing a lot of follow through with some of these names, and we're going to get into that tonight. Also in this video, I am going to go through two different ways that you can look at entering positions. One way we're going to use NVAX. I'll show you how you could do it after hours, just a simple pattern recognition. And then the next one, we'll do it with HOOD on how to just identify when something might be bottoming, when you start seeing it free falling, just a way to identify it. So we'll get into that. Everything will be in alphabetical order. Let's just get into it. So Amazon is one we added to the newsletter. We've been in this for like 2 days now. If you don't follow the newsletter, there's a link in the bio. Just click on it. It's free. The weekly edition's free. But if you see what's going on here, and let's just get rid of all these lines for a moment. Okay, so this is really the pattern, right? And I'm going to get rid of this data. So that's pre and post up here. So this is where you opened, and this is just so we can understand what's really going on here. Okay, and I do go into this kind of detail with my positions. So here's where we opened, right? That was our high, I should say, okay? Here's where you closed. Okay, so what did they do? So they took us down, flushed out all the stops right here, right? Everybody used this point as their stop. Everybody got stopped out, right? So they took all their stock, opened it, took all their stock, ran it back up, and closed at a 3-day high, right? But they didn't close above that line. So the next day they open it over so that everybody thinks, right, what? That this is going to really go. They buy it. And then they close it below the line, and now you're second guessing because you're below the open. Then they take it the next day and they gap it up. So, and now look at where you closed. So these are the games that people will play. But if you put in your pre-market data into this, you have a bear flag here, right? Here's your flagpole, and here's your move. Get rid of the pre-market data. What do we have here? We have a long bar, and we have a flag forming. So we have a flag forming above a gap on a major tech stock. To me, this is very bullish, and I'd pay attention to it. Now, there are some people that will take a look at the whole bar, draw in these lines, and say, well, they really have to watch this. Well, I guess I can do it from here, can I? That I have to watch this, right, because I do have a rising wedge. I would argue that it's not for a couple of reasons, but I'm not going to get into it. All I'm going to say is that with the way that you've based here and then broke out, you had a base, broke out, now you're forming a little flag. I expect it to push, and I expect it to fill the gap up to this level. I don't see any reason why it's not going to happen. Just, disclosure, I have a position in this. So ASAN, this is another one from the newsletter. I got asked. I get asked about for 200 to 300 names a day, and it usually takes me about an hour to whittle them down to 20 that I think are actionable for everybody to kind of take a look at. And ASAN, we'll see how we do tomorrow. We're going to go over net as well later today. But in regards to ASAN, look at that chart. Look at the breakout. Classic example again. And it's one of the reasons why in the community and when I've been talking to people via Twitter, I constantly am saying, if you can, try and hang in there, with your stops. Try and when you're going to get stopped out, try and hang in there a little bit and see if where you close. And you have this here. We can put it this way, right? So you can just kind of see it's both on both sides, both pre and post. So when you gap down like this, right? Obviously, it's going to be almost impossible to stay in it, right? And then you close here at 66. So that's not going to be realistic. What's realistic is when this starts trending higher, right, breaks out above this, starts trading, like we're going to start working our way back up to there. Well, you see these wicks, like here, all this wick did was what? Shake everybody out, okay, and then go. That's all that did. And it's really important to understand your patterns. So this is a long-legged doji, And what happened to it? They signify uncertainty. Well, the next day we had the open and the close encapsulate that long-legged doji. Told you everything you needed to know, right? Told you that we made a decision. This decision has been made. Now we're going to go higher. And that's exactly what happened. And we'll see how it goes tomorrow because Net came out with earnings tonight and they weren't great. But point being, what do we do with this now? Well, this is interesting because a lot of people will remember this pattern. Okay. So what do you have there? You have a channel. What happens if you flip a channel? Stocks can go parabolic. You don't have earnings to end of September. This can go. This could really go up another level. Fairly easy. So just keep that in mind. I don't think this moves anywhere near over. We're up $10 in the newsletter, and frankly, I think we're just beginning. So I think we could see a really big move here. So it's based long enough. It's the longest base it's had besides this one since it took off. So I think there's a lot of room there for that one. BNGO, look, I love the name. I want to cover it because I love the name. And I do think that this is the future. The question is just when is it going to happen? And I have the RSI down here tonight, and we'll get into that a little bit when it's appropriate. And I'll point out something to you tonight just on this specific chart. But see how you're basing here and it's going flat across? What's the RSI doing? Right? It's starting to try and get higher and higher. So just like stocks, and I'll link the RSI video to this as well to get an education on RSI. It's pretty simple. But I'll link that in here on some kind of card, maybe up here or at the end of the video so that you could watch it if you want to. But it at least explains to you how to read RSI properly and not just think that you need to know where the numbers are because that's the worst way to use RSI. But see how you're here, right? And what is this bar? This bar is what? A bullish engulfing. What is it encompassing? It's encompassing 2 weeks. So like that is huge what happened today. And for a moment, I'll throw in the volume and we'll just look at this. Look at this volume, right? There's no volume there. None. But this happened. So it's kind of like a catch-22 for me right now, frankly. I'm going to thin this line out just a little bit. It's a little too aggressive there. There you go. Much better. So what we can see here, I mean, we could put these in, right? I mean, they're not going to really add any substantial value. I mean, you're holding the 200, okay, but you're basically flatlining. You undercut it, you closed over it, and you closed over the 21. It's good, but you have a lot of room and a lot to go. And you can overlay volume by price and see if that makes any difference. And it is helpful that you're above the point of control. And now you know where VWAP is. But you have a lot of work to do in here still. So let's see what tomorrow brings with it. I do like the name a lot. And I do hope that it lasts here. Let's get rid of that. We'll leave the volume by price in for a little bit, especially for this one. So this is one we've been covering for a couple days, BTBT, and the symbols up here. If you have trouble on the mobile reading these symbols, please let me know. You know, I think some people said that they did have trouble, so I can just get back in this habit of doing this. Just comment if this is helpful. I don't change the backing. Like if I change this background to something, you know, lighter, you can see the watermark on the screen, but I don't like doing that way. So I think that I think the black makes the biggest difference. And for whatever reason, you can't change the color of the watermark. You know, you would think in today you'd be able to, but you can't. Anyway, so here you are coming across, right? Now, if we got rid of all these indicators and we just looked at price, we broke this level, ran up, broke that level, ran up, failed. 1125 is what you had to do and watch. You broke 1125. What happens the next day? It opens down a little bit. Looks like it's going to fail. Doesn't. Reverses. Takes out a new high. You know, the times I've been covering this, I've been pretty blunt about it. I think you're heading back to this 19 level, and I think it's going to happen pretty quickly. Look, I don't know what's going on, why these people want Bitcoin exposure to the miners, but see this one? Okay. Fidelity took a 7.8% stake in it. So institutions, other people are going to be looking at where they can take a stake in these stocks. I saw the fund disclosure yesterday on that. I was surprised by it, but it happened. So CHWY to me just looks great. You're just sitting right above this level, 92, 52, and we're looking ready to, like we're going to break out here. Look at these indicators. for a moment. And now you can just see us coming straight across, break that level, and we should be heading up. And where could we head up to? The first level you can head up to on CHWY is this, 105.98. Let's just call it 106. I don't see any reason why you can't get up there. I really don't. I don't see any reason why that's not going to happen. Let me explain to you why I'm saying that. Volume by price. This shows how much volume is in these levels. There is no volume here, right? There's none. It's a vacuum. Getting above 92.50, there's nothing there. It should just run right into it on any kind of buying. So I like this name a lot. I think this will work. DOCU's doing exactly what DOCU does, right? It shakes everybody out, and then it just goes higher. And again, this is one of the reasons, when we pick stops because of specific locations, but we're not the only one that knows where those stops are, right? So what do? They come down there for about 5 minutes, scare you, take your stock, and then reverse. And those games are going on more than people realize. You have to understand that they now have algorithms and AIs that mirror human behavior. So it's going to happen a lot more. So you're going to have to change your stop behavior if you're going to want to, increase your performance in this kind of environment. So, and I think it's only going to get worse, frankly. And that's fine. Just have to know it's there. And you just do contra trades. You could actually buy when you're supposed to get stopped. But anyway, breaking out here, what you have to do is this. Look at this. There's your breakout bar. Look where you closed. Like, this is setting up. What are earnings? I think we already had them, right? No, we have them coming up. So you have to September 2nd. This could absolutely explode here, right? I mean, technically, right? Small cup, large handle, and just go. It very well could. So let's see what happens with it, but I really like this name here. EDR. I just want to cover this one really quickly. I know a lot of people like it. I have the levels drawn. The levels have not changed. It's very important when you have a new stock like EDR that you consider the following. Okay, it's very important that you consider this low off the open bar, and you consider the high off the open bar just to start. The close and the open and the close are also important, but these are really your key levels. This is where someone from an institution usually steps up. And that's exactly what happened here again. So there's big money that's in at this level. So if you break this 23, 25 level, you have an issue and you're going to want to be out of it. I would not go near this. I mean, you should be able to see this from here, but let's just draw it anyway. Okay, so you broke here, right? So you broke this trend line, tried to rally, failed, came back down, hit the trend line, which is kind of interesting, right? And you have to get above that. You have to get above these two levels. I would say you'd have to get above 27, and then maybe you get a push to 28.5. But I would not be in a big hurry to buy this. I know a lot of people are looking at it, but it's not something that would be, great. Now, in regards to this, I really like this move. I think it was a very decent move today, getting above that level. And it just played out perfectly, in my opinion. So look at that 48 level, and then just went to 49 and broke out. Now, if you move that up, let's throw in some indicators. Okay, so what did we do? We had an enormous volume spike. If you want to look at the difference between this volume spike and that volume spike, I pointed this out yesterday. Here's your relative volume. Okay, so on this volume spike, I'm 6 times. On this volume spike, I'm 3.9. So you can see the difference. Okay, this was really substantial move yesterday, really substantial. And I expect this to go a lot higher. So, I mean, you could see this really grind. This is probably your first short-term target right now is $60. And I don't think it's going to take very long with this base and the amount of money that's pouring into this name. So I don't think it's going to take very long at all. But this just looks stellar, absolutely stellar. And when you see volume coming in like that, and it's just nonstop, and now you have exactly what you want to see the next day, which is what? Follow through. That's what you're looking for. You don't want to be in a one-hit wonder. You want to be in something that's going to continue to go, right? This one's going to continue to go, in my opinion. FNKO came out with earnings tonight, I believe, and we had a little move. Okay, yep, we came out with earnings tonight. So let's look at where that move was on FNKO, because I think this is kind of important. So we ran up after hours, right? Open, ran up, ran right to this level that we've had here forever and a day, right? We've had this, how long have we had this here? For a long time, right? So ran right to the 50-day, rejected this level, rejected the 50-day, and came all the way back down. Not exactly what you want to see from earnings. I'd be really cautious with this. This is the kind of thing that reverses in the morning, right? Breaks this rising wedge. I'd be really careful here, because to me, this is setting up for a great, great trap. So they run it up, make you think it's going to go, come back, undercut that low. You undercut the low from today, which was the open. This is going to come in, and you could get to 16 and a quarter very, very quickly if that happens. FSLY, I'm just going to cover very quickly. Look, they missed earnings. I'm not going to get overly excited because a bunch of people decided that they wanted to cover their short today, which is what happened, right? You went to 33, and then a bunch of people came in and said, okay, that's enough. We're covering it. They missed earnings. I would not be playing with this. Could it bounce back up to 50? Absolutely. There's better places to put money than in a software company that's missing earnings and not having the greatest guidance. So I would completely avoid this FSLY. It's not something that I would go near. We're going to do one more in the Fs, and then I want to do HOOD. And I want to just explain something on RSI that I think will be very helpful to people. So FTNT, I mean, this is one that we were talking about. It just goes straight up. It's just a monster, right? Came all the way down and broke and then ran up. Look, you're way overextended here at this point. And now you have this reversal bar. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to cover this in the top 20 tonight. If you're in this, you need to be pretty careful, okay? So let's just draw a couple things. Here's your 5-day. Here's your 8-day, okay? There's no reason that you can't come back to 291 at a minimum, or maybe even come into 284. There's very little reason why that couldn't happen. So just keep that in mind, especially when you have a bar like this. Usually a bar like that, let me just throw it back up in here. Usually a bar like that is not a one-day wonder. Okay, usually when you open right at the top and close at the low, that means you had selling all day, and it usually is not a one-hit day. It's usually another follow-through. You want to see if there's a follow-through, just see if you take out that low tomorrow. If you take out that low tomorrow, your first stop would be right here, 293, and then your 5-day is where you would go to. So that's why I wanted to cover it. So, HOOD, there's this love-hate relationship with retail. They buy it, they sell it. Robinhood does something else shady, and everyone just goes okay. They did an amendment to their selling, which they really shouldn't have done. You really shouldn't be able to say we're not going to sell them, we're going to lock up, and then do an amendment. You really should not be able to do that. It's a really awful thing to do to retail. And everybody knows that it's awful, and they get away with it. So once again, they got away with something. And they just dumped all of this on retail today. So I want to just point this out from here. Once you saw that break on 58 right here at this level coming straight across, you can see it here, bonk, bonk, bonk. You can actually draw this level across here, okay, the whole way. And what does that tell you from that break up, right? Look at that on the 15-minute, okay? Let's just zoom in on that. So you never really closed below there, did you? What happened when you closed below there, right? Gave you a little head fake for 15 minutes to a half hour, like, oh, maybe it's not going to break. And then that was it. And it broke. So now everyone's thinking that you're going to fill the gap. So here's how I looked at this today at the end of the day. And I was talking about simply for a trade. I'm just going to show you something. And you can use what I'm about to show you for any stock. And again, that RSI video that I mentioned, I will link that in here somewhere so that it can be watched. But either at the end or I'll do it in a card up top. But here, let me just show you this because this was pretty glaring to me. And let's get rid of everything else so we can just focus on this little tip because I think it's going to be really helpful to people. So here we are. This is the 1 minute of hood. Okay. Now, I just want to point this out. This is where we're at that line, right? Okay. This is where the low of the RSI is. Okay. So the low of the RSI is here. Stock keeps dropping. What's happening? The RSI isn't dropping with it, is it? We never took out that level in the RSI. Okay. Keeps going. Looks like we might snap. Doesn't. Comes back in. Comes in. Falls. So I got asked today about, well, how do you know, or what made you think that it was going to bounce? And I was asked in the community, and one of the things I pointed out, I didn't really have the time to point out, and I did it at the end of the day. Well, see this trend line right here? Okay, so I broke above that trend line. So that was roughly at what, 50, 50 and a half, something like that. Where does that get me right here? We'll say it's 50 and 3/4, we'll call it. So when I got to that level, to me, I'm like, okay, well, the bottom is in as far as RSI, which means that we're probably not going any lower. We've broken the trend line on the RSI. This is a 1 minute chart. You can do this. You can enter stocks that you want to hold for months using this pattern, but you just want to get in at the right price. So what you're seeing here is getting in at that price and then pushing, right? That's what you want to do. Now, after hours, it's playing out kind of how I thought it might play out. So where, right, see this is the break right here, right around this area right here, okay? And then from that break, look what's going on. Here we go. And now we're starting the, the hood after hours nonsense. So that was a nice way to get you in the trade. And then very simply, I mean, you could use that as your low. When you're trying to pick bottoms off of RSI, you got to give it some room. You have to give it room. So you might assign something to this if you're in at 50 and 3/4 and just say, you know what? If it breaks 48 and 3/4, I'll get out. And quite frankly, that was another thing that I was looking at. Now that we're done that, I'll just show you right here. And let's do it on here because it's so much cleaner. So, okay, here's 48.60. So if you're buying here and you're assigning a $2 stop to it, right? Look where your $2 stop is, right at a support line. So the whole trade kind of worked itself out, okay? But that's one way that you can enter something that's in a free fall and associate a way to get into it. It's not a perfect system, but it does work. It will work, and it will get you in stuff and keep you in it if you know how to use money management principles. MELI. All right, so here you are with the MELI. Probably the only really big social media company that just crushed it, right? And just went up on it. And there's really not much more to say here, except that this looks amazing, and it's probably going to this 2,000 range. I actually, if it didn't move as fast as it did, I probably would have tried to put it in the newsletter today. I put it in, I do a pre-market newsletter as well, and I put it in there. For the quick trade, but I really wanted to see it set up for the first 15 minutes because we've had so many failed rallies. But after that first 15 minutes, which is this bar, right? I mean, that's the majority of, let's get rid of this. That's the majority of the move. So at that point, it's really kind of hard to put in there. Now, you did close above even that, which is just telling you a lot about how much demand is out there for this. So I think you're going to get back to this 2,000, which is about 10%, pretty darn quickly. I don't think it's going to take very long at all to get back there. A lot of people, when you're trying to figure out which one of these you're supposed to be buying right now, do you buy the Facebooks of the world? Do you buy Shop? Do you buy Etsy? Do you buy ROKU? Which one do you buy? You buy the one that crushed numbers, right? And I'm not the only one that thinks that way. $1.37 we came in at. Look at the previous quarters and what they were earning, okay? So, and now this is the most earnings that you've ever had, and everyone else is faltering. Look at the volume that came in on this. It's telling you everything you need to know. This is going higher. It's going to that 2,000 range. It's probably just going to, I don't think it's going to take long. I was going to say it's going to grind. I don't think it's going to grind. I think it's just going to go there. And then that might be the beginning. That might give us another opportunity to break out of this, right? Look at this trend. You get popped back in that, 2,500, easy, if you can hop back in it. MRNA came out with earnings, really didn't say a whole heck of a lot. I find it somewhat interesting, because the stock after hours, you're close to 416. We're bouncing around, I believe, on the NVAX news, and I want to get to NVAX and show you a way that you could have entered that today, but after hours. There's a way that you could do it. And let me just focus on this for a moment before I go off on a tangent. So see these breaks? See how you can't get above that line? You know, you could be tired here. This could be it. It's had an enormous move from our parabolic move here. Remember when we talk about these parabolic moves, when you break these upper channels, how you can just rip? It's exactly what happened. So what do you do now? Nothing. You do nothing with this, in my opinion. If you're in, congratulations. To think that we're going to start taking out these wicks, I don't know that we are. I'm not sure of that. I know that we just closed at the same price twice in 2 days. I can't remember the last time we did that. So, and I'm sitting right on the fib level. So, and I can't close above of that to move my fib level. It's the first time that's happened, right? So let's watch this and see what happens. I'm not saying it can't go again, but you need to be somewhat cautious to the fact that it could pull back. Net, I just wanted to cover. It's really important that you understand where these upper trend lines are, especially when you're coming into earnings, because if you're at the top of a trend line and everything's not perfect, okay, you usually see weakness. And that's exactly what's happening here tonight. There was nothing, I read this report, and there was nothing overtly bad in this software name. Like nothing jumped out at me that was glaring. Yes, they had a write down, but that was pretty clear that they were going to have it. It was actually less than anticipated. So the selling down doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. And you can see me just tagging off the pre and post up here that shows that post data, and it's taken us to 114. So I would not be a buyer of this. I think that this was a very thin name and it can slice. So you're going to have to watch how we hold that 21 day. And if we don't hold that 21 day tomorrow, then you could come down to this and slice down to here and get to 102 pretty quickly. So that can happen. So this is a really thin name. And if you look at how it's traded on earnings before, this was the last earnings when you were right up at the same channel and you came right down to the 50 day and went through it. So it can happen. Just be aware of that and consider using a tight stop there. NVAX is one I just really want to talk about for a moment. So they came out with a data report tonight, and the report was about their booster shots, and it's not going over very well on the interwebs right now. Obviously earnings as well, but people are really focused on this booster report, this data that came out, and apparently it was very poor. Now, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to get into it. I'm telling you how it's being interpreted. Stock's down about 10% right now, but there was a trade here, and I just want to show you this trade so that if you ever see this, it's something that you can actually implement yourself. So see this? So it comes out with the earnings, issues that report, stock comes straight down, okay? I'm going to leave these lines in here because I find them, it's pretty interesting where they're at. Actually, this one we're going to move to here for our little quick lesson. So you see how this comes down and then it bounces up and now it comes back down. This is all in a 1 minute chart. Okay. What does this look like? It looks like an H, right? Okay. What happens at the bottom of that H? Right here, a morning star, right at the bottom of the H. So what I have here is I have a failed H breakout, right? So I should go from here to count if this breaks. They make you think it's going to break. They flush out all the stops right here. Okay. We reverse and there's your bottom. So you were actually able to buy this if you wanted, right? And this is a really simple pattern. Whether it's this pattern, this morning star, or something else, buying a failed H pattern, a failed H means that it doesn't break down, right? Because this is a bearish pattern. It failed to do what it's supposed to do. When they reverse from these levels, it's very easy to pick your stop. This is your stop. Your goal is to buy the next bar over that. That's it. In this case, I think that got you at 206, 207. Okay, and you had a fairly easy trade in it from there. So just that's one way to play these after hours when you see them crash and think, geez, maybe there's a bounce there. It's usually not the first bounce, right? As we always say, the first bounce gets what? The trap, which would have been buying up here. Second bounce buys down here, right? What would have happened? They would have got the cheese. So think about that. As far as NVAX, you have to see what happens with it, with that data. I don't know enough, and you're going to need smarter people to explain it than I. I'm not a scientist, so I don't really even want to touch the subject matter. In regards to path, I was asked to cover it. by numerous people. I just want to point out a couple things. I talked about this earlier. When you IPO, you have to look at the low, right? And you also look at the high, okay? So let me just show you this so you can see this, okay? You can see how it's right in here. Look at this. Low, breaks, reverses, holds, becomes support, breaks. What's it becoming? Resistance. So until you get above this 64.86, I wouldn't go near it. ROKU, you're holding. You're trying to hold here. Look, when you break down like this and you break a trend line, you just don't reverse and go back up. It just doesn't work that way, right? So yes, you gap down. Yes, you went back up to that level. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But when you reverse in the middle of the day, you need to be somewhat careful here. This was an excellent trade off the open for whoever had the guts to do it. And to me, the only real setup that you could have said was this one. And let me just show this. So this was really the only setup that you could have said. Same thing we just talked about, right? Here's that long bar down on the hourly, okay? But you don't undercut it. So you don't really break that H pattern. So you're basically just throwing caution to the wind and trying to buy it there. It's not really a system that I would use. Some people might do that, but I'm not going to buy something down here that's under all this resistance. So congratulations if you did it, and that's your trading style. That's great, but it's not mine. So what I would argue here is that you're trying to fill this gap. Well, this gap's only going to take me to what? 414. So when you saw this today, this is what happened with it. And I actually bought this, and I bought options, but when we started to rally higher, right? You see these rallies up, comes back down, rallies again. See this reversal right here? It told you everything you needed to see. As soon as you reversed here, you have this doji bar right here, and you undercut that doji. That was it. That was the high. So, and for those that were in the community, that's when I actually came out and said for the option trade that I posted, just get out. Get out of it. And that's where we got out, right around here. And we made some money on it. I think 10 or 20%, depending upon how you traded it, but not enough. But it is what it is. I'd rather take that than be down and, hoping and praying that it opens up tomorrow in the option expiration. It's always better to have a process and a system. Snap, I just want to go over this. I thought that this was extremely bullish today. So let's just move this little number out of the way. And let's just talk about this. So the fact that you went up today after ROKU's earnings, because these stocks have been intermingled, right? That whole sector has TTD as well. The fact that Snap went up on this news tells you everything you need to know. So I think you're going to get to this 79.18 pretty quickly and snap it and get that, snap it. I threw that out there. And then you're going to go there and you're going to keep going. So probably almost like another dad joke. Snow, people love the name. I just want to cover this. Earnings are around the corner. You have plenty of time, but they are around the corner. So you broke out. You needed to see follow through. You didn't get follow through today. What you did get was selling, right? And then you have this day, and then you have up here. You held this downward trend line today, this dark blue line, didn't you? You held it twice now. See if it holds. If it holds and flips over, you can get back up here. But until you see something like that, you just have to be careful that you're not going to break this trend line coming down. So just be careful with it at this point. TMO. And if you find value in this, if you could do me a favor and simply click the like button, I would sure appreciate it. I'm trying to get in front of as many people as humanly possible to show them what it takes to be truly successful at this. And if you're interested, we do live broadcasts every morning at 8:45. We do a fast money round Q&A on basically anything that anybody throws out. It's actually a lot of fun. So, and you probably find ideas that you didn't even know about. Look, this is really classic breakout right across here, okay? So you have one line right here, right? And you can see that even if I use this high, which is not exactly, we never even closed over it. So let's use that line because it fits perfectly right here. You're closing at an all-time high, and you held the 8-day. Look, this is just going to grind higher. My biggest concern with this, and this is TMO, I just wanted to cover it for the person that asked. And one of the things that you're going to just have to think about is you're just going to grind, but be concerned that you don't have volume. So that would concern me, no volume. So that's it. As always, subscribe to this channel and click all notifications, and everyone have a great evening.